On the distant planet of Veloria, a mystery had lasted for centuries. It was a mystery that many had tried to solve, but no one had ever succeeded. The people of Veloria, and the many kingdoms that surrounded it, had heard stories of the curse that bound their princess, Ilyana, to her throne. She was a beautiful, powerful princess, once full of hope and determination, but now she was trapped by a curse no one could break. Every prince, warlord, and ruler from across the galaxy had traveled to Veloria to try and break the curse. They had come from planets far and wide, bringing their strength, wealth, and magic, hoping they could lift the curse that kept the princess bound. But every time they failed. The curse was too powerful. Each prince, no matter how strong, handsome, or noble, could not lift her from her throne. Princess Ilyana sat in the grand palace, her back straight, her eyes cold and distant. Her once bright golden hair now seemed dull, her skin pale. The princess, who had once been known for her joyful spirit and warmth, had turned into a shadow of her former self. She had spent years watching as countless suitors tried and failed to lift her from the throne, each failure adding another layer of disappointment and frustration. The curse had been placed on her long ago, when she was just a young girl. It was a spell meant to keep her from ever ruling her people as she was meant to. But what had started as a curse of confinement had slowly become something worse, a curse of loneliness. As the years passed, Ilyana had lost all hope that anyone could break the spell. The curse was more than magic. It was a symbol of how trapped she was in her own life, her own destiny. No one had come to her aid in a way that truly mattered. They all saw her as a prize to be won, a challenge to overcome, or a beautiful creature to be admired from afar. But no one saw her for who she truly was. They couldn't see past the crown on her head. She had long since stopped caring for the empty promises of princes who came to try their luck, only to fail miserably. The grand feasts and celebrations they held for each new suitor seemed to mock her. She no longer felt like a princess, a ruler, or even a person. She felt like a symbol of everything that had gone wrong in her life. But there was one thing that still made her get out of bed every day: her people. The people of Veloria, although they didn't fully understand what had happened to their princess, still saw her as their leader. She still tried to do what she could for them. She listened to their concerns, advised them, and fought for the best interest of her kingdom, even if she could never leave her throne. She could not walk the streets as she once did, nor could she ever embrace her true role as the unifying force between the alien species that called Veloria home. But she was still their princess, even if she felt she was more of a ghost than a ruler. One day, as the sun began to set on Veloria's twin moons, a new ship landed in the courtyard of the palace. It was not a grand ship, like those of the royal princes, but a small, beaten-up craft that looked like it had seen better days. From it, a lone figure emerged, an outsider, a human. His name was Alex Carter. Alex had come to Veloria not for any royal business, but for something far more ordinary. He was a treasure hunter. He had heard of an ancient artifact hidden somewhere on the planet, an artifact that could change the fate of entire galaxies. And for someone like him, someone with no particular loyalties or goals beyond survival, that was enough of a reason to land on the planet and start looking. He had no idea about the princess's curse or her history. He didn't know that countless men had failed to break it. All Alex knew was that he had a job to do, and if he was lucky, he might get the treasure he sought while staying out of the way of the royal family. But when he arrived at the palace, he couldn't help but notice the strange energy in the air. The palace, despite its grand architecture, felt empty. It was as if the entire place had been abandoned, not physically but emotionally. The air felt still, as if no one had dared to speak above a whisper in ages. The palace guards were as stiff and silent as statues. As Alex wandered through the corridors trying to find someone who might point him toward the artifact he was seeking, he came across an open door. Inside, there was a large chamber with a tall, elegant throne. And sitting on that throne, as if she had never left, was Princess Ilyana. Alex stopped dead in his tracks. She was not at all what he expected. He had heard rumors about the beautiful princess, about her supposed curse, but nothing could have prepared him for the sight of her. She looked almost fragile, as if the years of isolation had worn her down. But there was something else, something that made her seem more alive than anything he had ever seen. Ilyana turned her head slowly, her eyes locking with Alex's. For a long moment, Neither of them moved or spoke. Then, in a voice that was soft yet filled with authority, she asked, "Who are you, human?" Alex cleared his throat. "I'm Alex. I'm just looking for something, a treasure." She raised an eyebrow. "A treasure?" She looked him over as if trying to decide if he was worth her attention. "You know there is more than just treasure on this planet, don't you?" "I'm not here for royal duties or politics," Alex said quickly. "I'm just trying to find something that's lost." She stared at him, studying him for a moment. "You're the first person to speak to me like that in a long time. Everyone else, princes, lords, rulers, they only come for one thing. But you're different," Alex shrugged. "I don't care much for politics. I'm just a scavenger looking for a paycheck." Ilyana's gaze softened, though only a little. "A scavenger? How typical." She looked away, her eyes drifting to the side as if lost in thought. "Do you know how many have tried to lift me from this throne? How many have failed?" Alex blinked. He hadn't expected her to be so open about it, but then again it didn't surprise him. She seemed weary of the whole thing. "I'm guessing a lot." 1,000, she said, her voice flat. 1,000 men have tried and none have succeeded. They all think they can break the curse. They all think they are special. "What about you?" Alex asked. "Do you think anyone can break it?" Ilyana looked at him, her eyes hardening. "It's not about breaking it. It's about finding the right person. The right power, and I don't think that person exists." Alex felt a pang of sympathy, something he didn't often feel. "Well, I'm not here to break curses. I'm just here to find a treasure, but I might help you if I can." She studied him again, and for the first time, Alex saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Hope, perhaps, or maybe just curiosity. But it was there, and for a brief moment he wondered if, just maybe, his arrival on this strange planet might turn out to be something more than a simple job. Little did he know, this chance meeting would change both their lives in ways neither of them could ever imagine. Alex had never expected to find himself in a palace, let alone speaking with a princess. He had always been a man of simple needs: food, shelter, a steady paycheck. But this was something else entirely. As he stood there, awkwardly in the grand hall of the Valorian palace, he couldn't help but feel out of place. The cold stone walls, the long polished floors, and the towering pillars made him feel like he had wandered into a different world. Yet here he was, face to face with Princess Ilyana, the woman who had been cursed for centuries and trapped in the throne room, unable to leave. Ilyana sat on her throne, her posture still elegant despite the years of confinement. She didn't seem like the kind of person who would be impressed by grand gestures or flashy speeches. No, it was clear to Alex that the princess was tired. Tired of the same old routine, tired of the endless parade of princes and rulers, all promising to break the curse and fail miserably. The room was quiet for a long while as they simply stared at each other. Alex didn't know what to say. He wasn't sure if he should even try to break the silence. After all, he wasn't here to deal with royalty or magic. He was just a scavenger, a treasure hunter looking for something he could sell. But there was something about the princess's eyes that made him hesitate. She wasn't like the stories he'd heard of distant monarchs. She seemed real, human, even though she was, in a way, more of a myth than a person now. Finally, Ilyana spoke. Her voice was soft, but there was a weight to it. "You're not like the others," she said, her gaze never leaving his. "You don't come here with promises of grandeur or magic. Why?" Alex shifted on his feet, unsure of how to answer. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't even close. He was just a man trying to make a living. But something about the princess's question, her directness, made him feel like he had to answer honestly. "I didn't come to break your curse," he said slowly. "I came here to find something else, a treasure, but—" He paused, thinking carefully. "But I can help if I can." Ilyana raised an eyebrow. "Help? Help with what?" "I don't know," Alex admitted, shrugging. "Maybe you want to leave this throne, and maybe I can help you do that." His words seemed simple, but as soon as he spoke them, he realized just how risky they sounded. Who was he to think he could help her? For a moment, there was silence again. The princess just stared at him, her expression unreadable. Alex was starting to feel awkward. But before he could say anything else, Ilyana broke the silence. "You think you can lift me from this throne?" she asked, her voice hard, yet almost amused. "I don't know if I can," Alex replied honestly. "But I think if you really want to leave, we can figure something out." Ilyana sighed, looking down at her hands. "You don't understand, do you? It's not about whether or not you can lift me. It's about the curse. The magic that keeps me here is not something you can simply break. It's more than that. It's about who I am, what I've become." Alex frowned. "I don't get it. You're a princess, right? You have all this power, all these people who look up to you. Why does it matter if you're stuck on a throne?" At that, Ilyana's expression softened for the first time. She looked almost sad. "Power doesn't mean freedom, Alex. My people may look up to me, but I'm not their leader. I haven't been for a long time. I'm a prisoner in my own palace. They expect me to be something I can't be. I'm stuck here, not because I choose to be, but because I don't have a choice." Alex didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to talking about feelings, and certainly not in front of a princess, but he could see the truth in her words. There was a sadness in her eyes that told him more than anything else could. This curse wasn't just about magic, it was about her life, her hopes, and the person she once was. "So what do you want?" Alex asked quietly, his voice gentle now. "I want to leave," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I want to be free of this throne. But I've lost hope. I've lost faith in everything and everyone. And I'm not sure I can trust anyone enough to even try anymore." There was a long pause as Alex considered her words. It was clear to him now that the curse wasn't just a magical spell. It was something deeper, something personal. Ilyana's heart had been chained just as much as her body. And as much as he wanted to help her, he knew that breaking a curse like that wouldn't be easy. But Alex wasn't the type to back down. He had made it through too many tough situations to let this one slip by. If he could do something, anything, to help her, he would. "Look," Alex said after a while, "I don't have magic or royal blood, but I've been through a lot of places, seen a lot of things. Maybe we can figure out a way to break the curse together. I'll help you, if you'll trust me." Ilyana was quiet for a long moment, her eyes studying him carefully. She seemed torn, like she wanted to believe him but wasn't sure if she could. Finally, she nodded slowly. "All right," she said softly. "I'll trust you. But you have to understand something. This curse is tied to more than just magic. It's tied to my people, to my past. I don't know if I can break free from that." Alex smiled a little. "Well, I didn't come here expecting things to be easy, but if you're willing to try, then so am I." For the first time in a long time, Ilyana allowed herself a small smile, though it was filled with uncertainty. "I'm not sure where to begin, but I'm willing to try too." And so the two of them began to talk. Alex shared his knowledge of ancient artifacts and spells, while Ilyana told him about the history of her curse, the sorcerer who had placed it on her, and the many failed attempts to break it. As the hours passed, they began to form a plan, though it was still unclear whether it would work. But for the first time, they felt a sense of hope, a hope that maybe, just maybe, they could break the curse together. The next morning, Alex and Ilyana set out to find answers. They would travel to the ancient temples hidden deep within the mountains of Valoria, where it was said the key to breaking the curse could be found. It was a dangerous journey, one filled with challenges and unknowns, but they were determined. Alex might not have been a prince or a magician, but he had something that none of the others had: determination and a willingness to fight for what he believed in. And for Ilyana, that was enough to reignite the spark of hope she had lost so long ago. The journey to the ancient temples of Valoria was not an easy one. Alex and Ilyana traveled for days, leaving the grand palace behind and venturing deep into the unknown. The landscape of Valoria was as breathtaking as it was unforgiving. Mountains that reached up to the stars loomed over them, their snow-capped peaks shimmering in the light of the twin moons. Between these towering peaks, narrow paths wound through thick forests and vast valleys, places that few dared to explore. But for Alex and Ilyana, this journey was more than just a way to break a curse. It was a chance to leave behind the weight of the palace, the endless expectations, and to face something unknown together. The princess, once trapped in a life of confinement and loneliness, was now walking beside a man who saw her not as a cursed princess, but as a person. She had never realized just how much that meant until now. As they made their way through the forest, Ilyana couldn't help but feel a sense of freedom she hadn't experienced in years. The air felt fresher, the sky clearer. For the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't bound by her throne, her people's expectations, or her own fears. She was walking, laughing even, with someone who had no hidden agenda, and that in itself was a small miracle. Alex, on the other hand, was beginning to realize just how much the curse had shaped the princess. He had heard about it in stories, how the curse was tied to her kingdom, her heritage, and how no one had been able to break it. But now that he was with her, hearing the quiet sadness in her voice when she spoke of her people, Alex could see just how deep her struggle ran. It wasn't just about breaking a spell. It was about finding herself again, outside of the role she had been forced into. They stopped for a rest one evening, sitting by a small fire beneath the vast, starry sky. Ilyana stared up at the stars, her thoughts distant. "I used to look at the stars and dream of freedom," she said quietly. "But now all I see are the eyes of the people watching me. Their hopes, their expectations. I don't even know what it feels like to live for myself anymore." Alex, who had been quietly watching the fire crackle, looked up at her. "Well, you're free now," he said. "You're not bound to that throne anymore. You're living for yourself, for the first time in a long time." She gave him a small smile, but it was filled with doubt. "I'm not so sure. There are things I can never escape, no matter how far I go. Things that are a part of me, my title, my people, my family. Those things will always be a part of who I am. And sometimes I wonder if it's too late for me to change." Alex shook his head. "It's never too late to change. You don't have to be the princess everyone expects you to be. You just have to be you." The words hung in the air for a moment, and for the first time Ilyana believed them. She had spent so long trying to be someone else, someone her people needed her to be, that she had forgotten who she really was. Maybe, just maybe, she could find herself again. Maybe the curse wasn't just about breaking the magic. Maybe it was about breaking the chains she had put around her own heart. The next day they reached the temple. It was hidden deep within the mountains, a place so old that even the most ancient maps had forgotten its location. The entrance was a set of stone stairs that led down into the earth, a dark winding path that seemed to have been carved by time itself. As they descended, the air grew colder and the silence was thick, unnaturally thick, as though the place itself was holding its breath. The temple was vast, its walls covered in ancient carvings and symbols, some of which Alex couldn't even begin to understand. They had been here before, people from all over the galaxy, searching for the answers to their own mysteries. But now it was their turn. Ilyana walked ahead, her steps echoing in the stillness, while Alex followed closely behind, his eyes scanning the walls for anything that could help them. After what felt like hours, they came upon the heart of the temple, a large, circular room with a raised stone platform in the center. On the platform stood a pedestal, and on that pedestal rested a glowing crystal. It pulsed with a soft otherworldly light, and for a moment, Alex felt a strange sensation wash over him, as though the crystal was calling to him. Ilyana stepped forward, her hand reaching out to touch the crystal, but she stopped just short of it. "This is it," she said softly, almost to herself. "This is what I've been searching for. This is the key to breaking the curse." Alex stepped closer, his gaze fixed on the crystal. "But how does it work? How do we break the curse?" Ilyana hesitated, her fingers brushing the surface of the crystal without touching it. "It's not just about the crystal. The curse is tied to my bloodline, to the ancient magic that flows through my family. The only way to break it is to face what's been holding me back all these years." Alex was confused. "What do you mean?" Ilyana turned to him, her expression serious. "The curse isn't just about being trapped in one place. It's about the fear, the guilt, the pressure of being the princess. My ancestors, my family, placed this burden on me before I was even born. They expected me to be their savior, their ruler, and because of that, I've never been able to live for myself. The curse isn't just on my body, it's on my heart. On my mind." Alex took a deep breath. He had known it wouldn't be simple. He had known there was more to it than just breaking a magical spell. So what do we do? Ilyana closed her eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. We have to let go. We have to let go of the past, the expectations, the guilt, the fear. Only then can I truly be free. Alex stepped closer to her, his presence steady and reassuring. You don't have to do it alone. I'm here with you. Ilyana opened her eyes and met his gaze. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel alone. For the first time, she didn't feel trapped by her destiny. She had a choice now. She had the freedom to decide who she wanted to be. And in that moment, she made the decision to let go of everything that had held her back for so long. With a steady hand, she reached out and touched the crystal. The room seemed to tremble. The ground beneath them shook, and the walls of the temple began to glow with the same eerie light. A low hum filled the air as the energy from the crystal surrounded them. Alex stood by her side, his heart racing, unsure of what was happening, but knowing that this was the moment of truth. The light grew brighter, and then, suddenly, it stopped. The temple fell silent, the air still once more. Ilyana looked at the crystal in her hand. It was no longer glowing, but she could feel its power, its magic shifting, changing. The curse was no longer binding her, and in that instant she knew she was free. The journey had been long, filled with danger, uncertainty, and moments of doubt. But now as Ilyana and Alex stood in the heart of the ancient Valorian temple, the weight of everything that had brought them here seemed to lift from their shoulders. The curse was broken and the princess was free. Free to leave the throne, free to live her life as she wished. Yet with this newfound freedom came a difficult choice. For the first time, Ilyana felt the wind against her face, the freedom in her heart. The magic that had bound her for so long was gone, and in its place was a sense of peace she had never known. She could walk again, she could be who she wanted to be. No longer would she be a symbol of hope or a tool for the kingdom's ambitions. But there was a deeper, more personal choice that lay ahead. As the two stood in the glowing temple, with the light from the now dim crystal still fading in the distance, Ilyana couldn't help but feel conflicted. I thought freedom would feel different, she said, her voice soft and almost uncertain, her eyes scanning the temple's stone walls. I thought I would feel powerful or joyful, but it's strange. I feel empty, like a part of me is still tethered to the past. Alex, who had been quietly standing by her side, took a step closer. He could understand the weight she was feeling. Freedom wasn't as easy as it seemed. Not when your whole life had been built around something else. Maybe that's because freedom doesn't come all at once. It's something you grow into. You'll get there. Ilyana turned to him, her eyes filled with both gratitude and sadness. But there's more to this, isn't there? She asked. The curse was never just about magic. It was about my people, my role, the expectations. Now that I'm free, I have to decide what to do with my life, and I don't know what that is anymore. Alex knew that the decision she had to make wasn't simple. She was the heir to a kingdom, a leader of people. Freedom might have come to her in an instant, but the responsibility that came with it was something that could never be taken lightly. And beyond all of that, there was the question of where they went from here. I can't tell you what to do, Alex said, but you don't have to figure it all out right now. You've been carrying that weight for so long, now it's time to let yourself breathe, to find your own path. And if that's with me, then that's what it is. Ilyana looked at him, her gaze softening. She had never imagined that her journey, her struggle, would lead her here, to this point where she was free to choose her own future and to choose who she wanted to be with. But the truth was, it was never just about the curse. It was about finding the courage to live for herself. Alex wasn't a prince. He didn't have the wealth, the titles, or the status that she was expected to want. But there was something else, something more important, that made him different from all the others. He saw her as a person, not as a symbol. And in his quiet way, he had stood by her when no one else could or even tried. I've never had anyone see me like that, Ilyana said, her voice thick with emotion. I've been so alone for so long, even in a room full of people. But you were different. You saw me for who I am, not for what I'm supposed to be. Alex stepped forward, taking her hand gently in his. That's because I don't care about titles or thrones or anything like that. I care about you. That's always been enough for me. The weight of their shared moments, the battles they had fought together, the quiet times by the fire, they all came rushing back to Ilyana in that moment. She realized that she had never truly been alone, not when she had Alex by her side. And maybe, just maybe, She didn't need to figure everything out on her own. Maybe she didn't need to carry the weight of the throne of the kingdom on her shoulders anymore. Maybe it's time I let go of my past completely, Ileana said, her voice growing steadier. Maybe it's time to live for me, for who I really am. Alex smiled at her, the warmth in his expression matching the gentle glow of the temple around them. I think that's a great idea. And whatever comes next, we face it together. For a long while they stood there hand in hand, the weight of their shared journey settling in. Ileana knew that her life would never be the same again. The world would not just welcome her back as the princess she once was. No, it would see her as something new. A woman who had chosen to break free from the chains of her past and step into the future on her own terms. And maybe, just maybe, she could rebuild her kingdom with that same courage. A kingdom of hope, of freedom, where no one would be forced to live a life they didn't choose. But that was a decision she would have to make on her own, without the weight of the crown. The journey wasn't over. They still had much to do, much to learn about themselves, about the world they had traveled through and the path that lay ahead of them. But for the first time, Ileana felt ready. Ready to walk this new road one step at a time, and with Alex by her side, she felt like anything was possible. They made their way back to the surface, the sun already beginning to rise over the distant hills, casting a golden light over the land. For Ileana, it felt like the dawn of a new era. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was a woman with a future to decide, and that future was hers alone to shape. As they walked together toward the horizon, the sound of their footsteps echoed through the valley. They didn't need words to know what the future held. The curse had been broken, and with it a new chapter of their lives had begun. And though the journey ahead might still be uncertain, one thing was clear. They would face it together as partners, as equals. Whatever came next, they would write their own story.